So the war between Iran and America, it has been going on. It has now restarted for the last 2 weeks almost. The American side has been bombing a number of locations, particularly in southern Iran. Iran, too, has been retaliating by attacking American bases in the Middle East, including in Bahrain, Kuwait and Qatar. And for the very first time since this war began in late February, early March, we are seeing Gulf countries, American allies in the Gulf region, also join in this war effort. They've been attacking Iran and some of its critical infrastructure. How does this war now shape up? Should we be worried that this is going to be a constant conflict? This is going to be yet another forever war? I'm now joined by a very special guest, the former Prime Minister of Israel, Mr. Ehud Barak. Thank you very much, Mr. Barak, for speaking with us here on Times Now. It's been almost 6 months now since this war began. It doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. In fact, there was a brief lull when the ceasefire was on sometime in May and in June. But again, it's restarted over the last couple of weeks. What is your assessment of where things stand currently?
First of all, I want to correct a certain point that you made. You said that Iran fighting now America and Israel together, which is not exactly accurate. The last few weeks, it's only Trump. Israel is not involved yet. Probably it will be dragged into it. But it seems to me that neither the Americans nor the Iranians want Israel to be involved this time. But having said that, this is a war that started in a quite justifiable case in June 2025, more than a year ago, with 12 days of intensive attacks on the Iranian nuclear plan and as well as the ballistic missiles plan, and then restarted in February 26th, toward the end of February, and continued over several months. This time, the idea was not kind of well-calibrated and planned in advance. It seemed that somehow the Americans, probably dragged by the encouragement they got from Netanyahu in an attempt to topple down the Iranian regime. And the idea that you can topple down a regime of such a fanatic, ideological, extreme religious regime by eliminating a dozen of people, including the leader himself, sounds to me to be a little bit illusory.
Okay.
And it was illusory at the time. It's not just in retrospect. People around the table during the discussions warned that it's not going to work in a way. So, in a way, the new war was missing the main elements of any war. You should have, when you enter a war, you should have a clear set of objectives. They should be technically achievable. You should have the means in order to execute this campaign. You should have the political will to stand up the ups and downs along the way. And you should have a clear political vision, how you end it, how you translate achievements in the battlefield into sustainable political and diplomatic results. Okay. When you look at in hindsight, but many people said it in advance during the planning, these new attacks started February 26, missed all those elements. There was no one thought that the Strait of Hormuz will be closed immediately?
Yeah.
Is it even possible? Every war game in headquarters, in any capital in regard to the Middle East and Iran, had the second or third step of Iran to close the Hormuz Strait. Mm-hmm. Did anyone calculate whether it's possible to impose upon them? Iran is not Cuba, it's not England, you know, it's not an island. You cannot really close it by closing the ports. Iran has 7,000 kilometers of borders with some 8 different countries. It can bypass any conceivable blockade.
But right now, Mr. Barak, The entire war effort, the restarting of this bombing campaign, is primarily focused on the Strait of Hormuz and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. How can America and, frankly, the rest of the world ensure that the Strait of Hormuz is open, it is free, it is an international waterway that can be used by commercial tankers?
I'm not sure it's practical because of the clumsy way that these last 4 months went. It ended up that, you know, it's on rhetoric, both Trump and Netanyahu argued that we at war, that they are at our kind of, we can decide whatever we want to do to them. That's not clear. It's an asymmetric war. For the United States or Israel to win means to win in a way that every teenager in India, in Israel, in Europe, any part of the world will see a victory. Namely, for America, it's something like Venezuela. For the Israel, it's something like the 6 Days War.
Yeah.
But reality is different. For the Iran, as well as for Hezbollah and Hamas, it's enough to survive. If the Iranians, after 4 months, are still on their feet, they are ready to fight, in spite of the major blows that they suffer, they're steady to rise and keep fighting. That means that in their own eyes, in the eyes of their own public, in the eyes of the capitals of the Middle East, and in the eyes of the public opinion in the world, and even in the eyes of history, they had won. So in a way, neither Israel nor America did not win it until now.
Okay.
So the new 12 days, the last 2 weeks, started by a hesitant President Trump, that he wake up in the morning looking for a way to diffuse the tension through negotiation, and coming at the end and the evening, coming threatening them to be obliterated. Neither end of it will work this way. So I see most probably it will continue for weeks now, because here's election and the Iranians feel very confident that they can hold against this blockade or these attacks.
All right.
Attacks Iran. It's not as big as India or China or the United States, but it's about the size of half of Europe with 100 million people and very fanatic, tightly held regime that does not hesitate to kill his own people if they block the regime from
I want to come back, Mr. Barak,
so
to what happened earlier this week, right? Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel and President Trump, they both met at the White House. There have been public differences between the two leaders just in the recent past, particularly in the last few months since this war began. Do you believe that both men are now on the same page as to how this war now progresses and hopefully concludes?
No, I don't think so. Netanyahu met with Trump some 8 times since Trump was re-elected almost 2 years from now, more than any other leader. But in the past, Trump used to listen very carefully, sometimes to take the advice from Netanyahu against the judgment of his deputy, J.D. Vance, or Marco Rubio, or leading American generals. That's what had happened in February this year. Netanyahu visited him in Mar-a-Lago in 11th of February, and basically Netanyahu convinced Trump that he has an idea how to topple down the regime within a few weeks. Trump possibly thought of it as some kind of Venezuela-like operation. And he was deeply frustrated. His people, J.D. Vance, called it on real time, called it a farce, and Marco Rubio on real time called it bullshit, the whole presentation of Netanyahu. But Trump followed Netanyahu's recommendation, and once it failed, you know, Trump doesn't like losers, so he still insists on keeping the appearance of a normal relationship. He He accepted it. There was no photos, no Four Eyes meeting, exchanging views within a company of 10 people on each side is not very kind of intimate. You cannot really discuss sensitive issues. So it was more for pro forma to show that Israel is not neglected. We are not being thrown under the bus. But I don't believe that Trump anymore follows the recommendations of Netanyahu.
So let me come to the final part. The final part is, you know, both Trump and Netanyahu, both of them face critical elections in the next few months. Trump has the midterm elections in November. Netanyahu has parliamentary elections, general elections in Israel on the 27th of October. And both leaders and their respective political parties seem to be trailing in the polls right now. What happens to this war if both men were to lose these elections?
Look, Trump cannot lose in a dramatic manner. He cannot be deposed by any result. It probably the only result is if the Democrats takes both the Senate and the House, he will be very limited in whatever. He will be a kind of lame duck for the next 2 years. But he will be still the president of the United States. It's quite a powerful position anyhow. Netanyahu, if he loses election, he goes out of politics. His criminal court case accelerated, and a national inquiry committee into what happens before October 7, 23 and after October 7, 23 will be part of a big discussion, and he will lose. He has a lot to lose. So basically, I think that for Trump, there is a very short window of opportunity. He has already the Mondial and the 250th anniversary of the United States behind him, and his birthday behind him, and there are still 4 months to election. So he might have a still short window to do something in regard to Iran. If he could have a viable military program that ends up with defeating Iran, he would take it. If he would just know that if he just raise the bar and open a full-scale attack on Iran, infrastructure, and probably even boot on the ground if needed in order to complete taking over Hormuz or some other operation, he would have done it. Point is that he's professionals, he's a military leader, he's a deputy and the foreign affairs minister who also head of the National Security Council. And experts are warning him that it's not clear, bearing in mind his experience in the last year. He understands that there is a huge gap between what you dream before you start operation and what really happens. They warn him that he doesn't have even enough intercept or missile to intercept the ballistic missiles coming from Iran, because he pretends to protect not just American bases, but also the Gulf states and Israel and so on. So it's quite clear to him that if he opens a full-scale campaign in order to bring Iran to its knees, it might fail and ensure his defeat on both Senate and the House.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Mr. Ehud Barak, the former Prime Minister of Israel, thank you for joining us here on Times Now on this Global Exclusive. Thank you.